So today, we're going to break down the totally unique and honestly super powerful leadership style of Angela Merkel, one of the most important figures of our time. We're going to dive into her methodical approach to power, a style that wasn't built on charisma or big speeches, but on this foundation of just unshakable scientific stability. It's a model that quietly changed the game of modern politics, and it all starts with one simple, really counterintuitive idea.
And look, this one idea, it's the key to understanding everything else. I mean, think about the world back then, right? It was an era that rewarded huge personalities, these grand speeches, massive displays of ego, and into that world steps Angela Merkel, who found a completely different source of power. She figured out that real dominance wasn't about shouting or flexing, it was about outweighting, outthinking, and just plain out-stabilizing everybody else in the room. It's this paradox that will completely redefine what a modern leader looks like, and it all kicked off in one defining moment on live TV.
All right, so here's how we're going to unpack the Merkel model. We'll start with that key moment where her strategy was born. Then we'll look at the experiences that forged her mindset, define her core philosophy, and then break down the actual daily system she used to make it all happen. After that, we'll look at her legacy and, maybe most importantly, how you can actually use these principles yourself.
Okay, so our story kicks off in 2005. It's this famous televised debate in Germany they call the Elephant Round. It happens right after the election. So picture this. On one side, you've got the chancellor at the time, Gerhard Schroeder, super charismatic, often bombastic guy. And on the other side, Angela Merkel. Now Schroeder, even though his party did pretty poorly, he just comes out swinging. He's loud, aggressive, totally dismissive. But instead of fighting back with fire, Merkel does something way more powerful. She just becomes still. She basically weaponized boredom and turned her opponent's noise completely against him.
I mean, this moment was pure political theater, but not how you'd think. On one side, you have all this noise. Gerhard Schroeder, just fueled by ego, literally yelling that she would never, ever be chancellor. He was just caught in this spiral of self-destruction, and the more he yelled, the less like a chancellor he looked to everyone watching at home. He was making a lot of heat, but zero light. And on the other side, the signal. Merkel just sits there with this calm, almost detached curiosity of a scientist in a lab, just observing the phenomenon in front of her. She refused to get sucked into the drama. She was looking for the equilibrium, that point of balance, and she let his own energy be his downfall. She got it. The ultimate authority isn't held by the loudest person, but by the one who stays stable while everyone else falls apart.
Yeah, but that kind of profound stillness, it doesn't just happen, right? It doesn't just appear out of nowhere on a debate stage. It was forged over decades in the quiet, frankly oppressive world of East Germany. See, before she was a chancellor, she was an outsider, a scientist, who learned that to survive in a place built on lies and surveillance, she had to build this unbreachable internal fortress of pure logic.
So you have to imagine growing up as a pastor's daughter in a communist police state, she learned a really hard lesson early on. Speaking the unvarnished truth was dangerous. There was the truth you said in public and the truth you knew in private, and getting those two mixed up could have serious consequences. So where could she find safety? Well, in the physics lab. As a quantum chemist, she found a sanctuary that wasn't run by ideology, but by the unshakable laws of the universe. In her lab, facts were just facts. Data didn't lie. An equation was either right or it was wrong. This gave her this deep internal sense of sovereignty. So when the Berlin Wall came down in 1989, she didn't see it as a chance to become a star. She saw a chance to apply this methodical, truth-seeking mindset to a brand new, chaotic world, and she jumped into politics determined not to be theatrical.
And what came out of all those years is this idea we can call sovereign stability. Think of it like this. It's an internal fortress built out of scientific logic, a permanent, verifiable truth inside you that doesn't need social approval or anyone else's validation. For Merkel, this wasn't just some personality trait, it was a survival mechanism. In East Germany, trying to get approval from the state meant you had to compromise your own reality. So she systematically unlearned that habit. Her data, her analysis, that was the only thing that didn't lie. And that became the bedrock of her entire political career. So, from that foundation of sovereign stability, her core philosophy emerged, the guiding principle for pretty much every decision she would make. It's a philosophy of methodical endurance. She'd seen firsthand how reactive, emotional decisions led to total disaster in the GDR. She realized that every single time a leader makes an impulsive choice just to look strong, they're actually giving up their power to the chaos of the moment. Real strength wasn't in the reaction, but in the deliberate, calculated response. And this leads us to her core strategy, technical neutrality. This is a total rejection, a complete flip of the script on the idea that a leader has to be a performer.
Instead, it demands that you stay in the data, analyze the variables, and you wait. You wait until the point of equilibrium, the most logical path, becomes absolutely undeniable. Think about the Eurozone debt crisis. While other leaders were calling for dramatic action and making these emotional speeches, Merkel was famous for her long pauses. She was gathering data, running the numbers, and refusing to be rushed into a decision that might have felt good politically but would have been a disaster economically. She was confident that eventually everyone else would have to tune in to the frequency of calm, rational analysis.
This simple phrase was her mantra. The center is the anchor. And it's so important to get this right. This doesn't mean finding some lazy political compromise between left and right. Not at all. It means finding the stable, unshakable, technical core of an issue, the part that's free from all the ideology and the hysteria. It's the point of maximum leverage, the place where the data is just undeniable. By anchoring herself to that data-driven center, she could ride out any political storm.
Okay, so a philosophy is one thing, but how do you actually do it day in and day out? Well, Merkel treated her office, the Chancellery, not as a stage for performing power, but as a laboratory for finding truth. She turned her core beliefs in sovereign stability and technical neutrality into a set of tangible, repeatable habits that guided her every single day.
This was her process, which we can call systematic de-escalation. First up, observe. Treat every crisis, doesn't matter if it's a banking collapse or a diplomatic standoff, with the cool detachment of a scientist looking at an experiment. Second, process. Analyze all the variables without any ideological bias. Force the story to become clear through data, not emotion. Third, and this is the hardest step for any leader, wait. She used what she called the waiting audit, a deliberate pause, sometimes for days, just to make sure her decision was sovereign and not just a knee-jerk reaction to pressure from the media or other leaders. And finally, de-escalate. Every action, every statement was designed not to make headlines, but to be a deliberate threat to panic and hysteria.
And her toolkit went even deeper than that. Beyond the waiting audit, she practiced reading through failure, constantly analyzing how a deep technical knowledge of a subject could completely dismantle a populist argument. She also famously used what's known as Swabian housewife logic. This is a German cultural idea that's all about extreme fiscal prudence and common sense. Basically you don't spend money you don't have, and you always prepare for winter. For her, it was a pragmatic, no-nonsense way to avoid getting swept up in grand, expensive political visions. Instead, she just let the math speak for itself. It was all part of this daily, rhythmic habit of seeking foundational stability. While everyone else was chasing glory, she was methodically building equilibrium.
And the result of all this relentless, methodical system, it wasn't just a successful 16-year run as chancellor. No, it was a complete transformation of what it even means to be a world leader in the 21st century. The Merkel model fundamentally redefined power for the modern age, shifting the entire focus from performance to process.
I mean, look at this contrast. It's night and day. The old industrial age model of a leader was all about charisma, a grand vision, making a lot of noise. It was all about the show. The Merkel model replaces every single one of those things. Charisma gets replaced by method. A grand, singular vision gets replaced by functional, adaptive stability. Noise gets replaced with data. And the show gets replaced by this quiet, relentless commitment to the unvarnished center. She proved that you don't need to be a performer to wield immense world-shaping power.
And this right here is her ultimate legacy. She proved that stability isn't passive. It's an active, offensive superpower. It's a structural weapon. With it, a quiet, data-driven decision made late on a Sunday night after weeks of analysis, like our controversial 2015 decision during the refugee crisis, can have a greater, more lasting impact than a whole year of loud speeches. She destroyed the myth that success is always about disruption and performance, and she showed the world that the only thing that really matters is finding and holding that stable, unvarnished center.
So, okay, what does any of this have to do with us? Merkel's journey is so much more than a political history lesson. It's a practical guide for anyone who feels like they're being shouted down by the loud voices in their own life, whether that's a chaotic project at work or some tense family dynamic. It teaches us that real power isn't about winning the argument in the moment. It's about your ability to stop performing the drama and start building your own anchor of stability.
So, let's make this personal. Ask yourself, where is your elephant round? Think of an area in your life, a project, a recurring argument, a high-pressure meeting, where you feel yourself getting pulled into the noise and the drama. That situation where you find yourself constantly just reacting to the chaos instead of acting with your own calm, sovereign intention. Now, ask yourself this.
What would happen in that situation if you applied the Merkel model? What if, instead of reacting with more noise, you just observed with detachment, processed the data, and had the courage to wait? When you raise your level of calm, when you really commit to stability, you stop being a victim of the hysteria and you start becoming the master of the outcome.
Because that's the ultimate takeaway from the Merkel model. The noise that's all around us, in our jobs, in our culture, and our politics, it's a choice. You can choose to participate in the chaos, or you can choose to build your own anchor. The truth is almost always in the stable center, and your ability to find it and to hold it, your stability, that is the code for your greatness.